Щоб далі продовжувати наше зрозуміння планів і намірів музею, ми також заговорили з новими представниками музею відносно відповідного місця на вивчання Голодомору та інтернування українців в канадських таборах під час Першої світової війни.
In the case of the exhibits on the Holodomor, actually we're talking about 7 different exhibits which are looking at different aspects of the Holodomor and also giving different visitor experiences about the Holodomor. For example, we have a place where visitors can come and listen to first-hand testimonies from survivors of the Holodomor. That's a very sort of auditory experience. We also have exhibits where visitors can look at primary source documents, photographs, and really dig deeply into not just the violation of the Holodomor, but the buildup beforehand in the Soviet Union, also the attempt of the Soviet Union to officially cover up and deny the Holodomor, and the attempts of Ukrainian diaspora around the world, in particular the Ukrainian Canadians, to break the silence about the Holodomor, really from 1933 on up to the present day. In fact, Canada has been a leader, and many Ukrainian Canadians have played an important role in telling the world about what happened in 32 and 33.
There are 7 elements throughout the museum. It's a very large building. And so there will be a permanent presence for the Holodomor story. It is a major piece of what we're doing. So the exhibits are permanent. The story and its evolution will continue to unfold as we come up with new ways to interpret that material. It's important to note that we are not building a series of memorials, but rather that we are providing our public with a real in-depth understanding of the atrocities and of significant developments in human rights in Canada and internationally. So it's a very big part of our story.
Definitely the stories of the internment of Ukrainian Canadians and, in fact, other ethnocultural groups during wartime in Canada will be an important story in the museum. It will be dealt with, I think, in a way that is very honest and looks at Canada's human rights record on this point with a lot of frankness and directness, but also emphasizes the way that Ukrainian Canadians and other affected groups have fought in Canada to get the government to apologize and to make compensation for this crime against them. Part of what makes Canada a great country today.
There was a feeling that there was, in fact, the museum, although propagating that they were interested in the general, were focused specifically on the Holocaust. And it seems from what you're saying that has changed right now. Was this a conscious decision of the board or the Board of Governors to go along with these concerns raised in Canada? Or was the generation of this change based on something else?
I think that the institution has evolved over time. I think that the positioning of a more global understanding of these issues has been in place for years. And maybe we have not done a great job of communicating that in fact, we're not about, it's not that we were only about the Holocaust and now we're about a whole bunch more. We're careful in terms of how we phrase this, but we need to understand that what we're looking at is ideas and histories, and that it has evolved. The programming has evolved because it's in a sense a startup. But there was always, I believe, a commitment to consider many stories around human rights.
So in the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, there is a gallery devoted to the subject of the Holocaust. That certainly hasn't changed from earlier versions of the gallery allocation. What did get revised, though, I was in 2000, beginning of 2011, is the gallery that we're calling Breaking the Silence. I mean, in our former design, we had included up to 80 different gross human rights violations. And as we had kind of shared that concept across the country through various public engagement activities, we got quite negative feedback from many communities, including Ukrainian Canadian communities, feeling that the stories were getting lost in the mix and you're comparing apples and oranges. So that gallery was substantially revised to focus primarily on the 5 genocides that the Canadian government has officially recognized, which include the Holocaust, the Holodomor, the Armenian genocide, the Rwandan genocide, and Srebrenica as an act of genocide. These 5 have been officially recognized by our parliament, and as a federal crown corporation, we feel it's very appropriate to focus on these.
Це все тоді дуже гарно звучало. Але на недавно відбутій конференції про навчання про Голодомор довідуємося, що обіцянки музею пусті.
I've listened to what they've said for a couple of years already. We've done presentations for Clint Curl and the CEOs of the Canadian Human Rights Museum. They haven't come through with their promises. So I think that's a concern. And the Ukrainian community at the moment has a campaign to have a huge writing, campaign to tell them about it, to tell the politicians that they're displeased, and to sign petitions. So I think that's, we're going to continue doing our work, regardless of what they do, but we're not very positive about what's happening there.
Наші люди із Вінніпегу, які займаються цією справою, також підтримують цю сумну новину, що для Голодомору немає відповідного місця.
Ми стоїмо з децизією Конгресу українців Канади, підтримуємо ту позицію і беремо кроки, які є по нашій можливості, чи то в пресі, чи при університетах, чи в інституціях, домагати, щоб той музей висвітлював і щоб галерея, так як Кук пропонував кілька літ тому, була присутня в тим музею. Ми будемо обстоювати ті права.
In the letter in 2004 with Izzy Asper, they promised a permanent and a prominent presence for the Holodomor. That hasn't come through so far. We haven't seen this.
This has to be resolved before the gates of this publicly funded National Museum open, because I fear that what we will finally see in that museum is not only the denigration of things Ukrainian, no exhibit dedicated to the Canada's first national internment operations, a minor exhibit about the Holodomor tucked away in some side gallery, maybe a high public traffic area on the way to the toilets, but not really exactly where it belongs. Morally it's offensive to do that. We need to rally behind the UCC on this, which has finally come to its senses, I will be blunt about that, and recognize that this is not what they were promised back in 2003 by someone writing them a letter. It's very different than what they thought what they were going to get. It's exactly what we predicted they would get. Now that those two streams of thought have come together in reality in Winnipeg, it's time to act. It's like I said at the end of my presentation, decades ago, my old friend Bogdan Panchuk wrote in his diary that he had a simple gospel: do something, робіть щось. And that's what we should be doing.
Конгрес українців Канади закликає всіх до акції. Ви можете писати своєму депутатові канадського парламенту www.parl.gc.ca. Можна писати або телефонувати міністрові канадської спадщини достойному Джеймс Мур на телефон 819-997-7788 або на електронну пошту james.moore@parl.gc.ca. А також звертайтеся до людей, які виявили бажання бути спонсорами музею www.friendsofcmhr.com.